West Cork Beard Company make beard oil and beard balm for a strong, healthy, great-looking beard. Handmade from all natural ingredients in Clonakilty, West Cork. Check out their YouTube channel for beard care tips and advice, or catch them online at westcorkbeardcompany.ie. YouTube channel for beard.
Can you hear me? Oh my! Ryan? Can you hear me? Sorry, people. Apologies.
Yeah, your screen's a bit blurry though.
Give me 2 moments. Typical live stream people. Bear with me. We'll be with you. Yes, welcome to the Same Old Arsenal Thursday review, because I thought obviously we are playing on the Friday. I've come back now. Can you see me now, Ron?
Yeah, I can see you perfectly.
Brilliant, people. Technical issues. Apologies. So yes, the Same Old Arsenal podcast Thursday preview. Big shout out to my Arsenal family for bringing me on board. It is a privilege, it's an honor. I'm sure Craig and Dan have got their black clipboards already waiting to put off the checklist to see how well I'm doing. Bit of a technical hitch at the beginning, people, but that is what happens. Big up to the people in the chat. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Also, not to forget, the podcast is sponsored by West Beard Oil Company. So people, maintain your beards. Ladies out there, for your amazing partners, hit the link in the description and yes, enjoy the product. So people, so my first go on hosting the Same Old Arsenal. This is a little bit weird for me tonight because obviously I was a massive fan of the podcast in the beginning. So to turn full circle and to be asked to sort of host the show, it's a very, very seminal moment for me. And to be honest with you, I couldn't think of a better guest to join me to discuss the troubles and the woes of Arsenal. First, I want to introduce Rowan, who's like a little brother to me personally. But Rowan, welcome aboard, and thank you for joining me for my first outing as the host on the Same Old Arsenal preview show.
No, thanks. It's really good to be on. I appreciate the opportunity. I always like to kind of interact with different audiences, and this is a great platform to do so. So yeah, thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, I couldn't think of a better person to sort of join me for. Being an Arsenal fan of recent years has been very, very difficult. People in the chat, as I mentioned before, get your virtual waves in and hellos and hugs if possible. But yeah, Rowan, I want to kick off by asking you. I'll be honest, it's sort of to give you a bit of context. Sort of the end of last season and coming into this new season in terms of what Arsenal were going to do in the transfer market. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't too confident, and I'll sort of touch on it a bit later as to why I wasn't. Bit of a loaded question, but what have you made of what have you made of the signings so far, and also combine that with what you've seen in terms of the pre-season games you've seen with Arsenal?
Yeah, I think obviously before the window started, we were all thinking of this big summer rebuild of looking to shift a lot of players out and then kind of bringing in players who fit the philosophy and the profiles Arteta is looking for. And it has been slow, without a shadow of a doubt. I think when you look at the business that we've done, I like the signings we've made in terms of profile-wise. When we look at, Ben White, Sambi Lokonga, and Nuno Tavares, I think each of those guys give us something really important going to next season. Because if we start with Tavares, I think one of Mikel Arteta's biggest flaws last season was towards the latter stages of the season, where we had Kieran Tierney absent in that period where we had the 2 legs against Villarreal. And we played this 4-2-3-1 system, and it brought us good success since Boxing Day. Then when Tierney went out injured, we didn't have a naturally left-footed left-back in reserve in Mikel Arteta's eyes. And so in those games against Villarreal, we changed the system and we played Xhaka at left-back, and rather than overlapping, he stayed deep, and then we had Pepe playing on the left. So it was kind of a lot of changes. Partey played in midfield, operating more as in a lone role, kind of covering the whole of the midfield. And there were a lot of changes, and I think it kind of ruined the dynamic. And as we saw in the 2 games against Villarreal, we didn't look convincing at all, both in terms of offensively and defensively. And you can just see how important that one player has in your team in Kieran Tierney. He became absent. We didn't have a naturally left-footed left-back in reserve. Yeah. So it kind of messed a lot of things up. And Tavares coming in, although the levels between Tierney and Tavares is significant, Tierney's by far a better player. But profile-wise, he's very similar to Tierney. So we have that backup in reserve now. So if Tierney does become unavailable, we don't have to chop and change a lot of things around with regards to the system. And he's young, and I think the price we bought him for is desirable. Lokonga as well, we needed to strengthen midfield depth-wise, and I think when you look at him, the reports that came out of Belgium and how a lot of people spoke very highly of him, and you see the way he's performed in pre-season, he's been a very good player as well. Certainly has a lot of potential, and it's another signing that made sense in terms of strengthening midfield. And Ben White, I think, is another good signing. Last season, I think David Luiz was arguably one of our most consistent performers, both defensively and also what he provided on the ball in terms of ball progression. And I wanted to keep him for one more season because of those experience and leadership he provides, both on and off the pitch. But with him going, we needed to replicate and replace the qualities that he was going to take with him. And I think Ben White was the perfect replacement, not just in terms of ball progression, but also the way he can drive forward with the ball, something Luiz can't do, and also the way he's confident at high line. So although when you look at Ben White, 50 million is an expensive price tag, but I think we've got to consider English tax, and players do come at those kind of prices. Wan-Bissaka for United went for 50 million. Harry Maguire obviously went for 80 million. So I think we just got to accept that. So I like the signings we've done. I would have liked to have seen more, without a shadow of a doubt, a creative a right back, a goalkeeper coming in. But I think also I like to kind of look at things from the club's perspective as well. And I think it's been difficult to move players out, not just for Arsenal, but other clubs as well. Being in the middle of a global pandemic hasn't helped. And I think that's kind of stifled our ability to progress deals quickly. But hopefully, as the transfer window comes more towards the end, you will start to see the club kind of cutting their ties with a lot of players, and we can bring in a couple more reinforcements. So that's my thoughts on the transfer window. In terms of pre-season, it's definitely not been as convincing as what we would have liked to have seen. I don't look too much into pre-season personally. I look at it more from a...
I was gonna ask you that because everyone has their different view of what pre-season is. Some people say, it's about fitness and, getting the players into shape. Some people look at the results religiously. It just depends how you look at it. Yeah. I'll be honest. I'll come back to you again with the performances, what you've seen in pre-season. And we played Hibs, Rangers, Millwall, Watford, Chelsea, and Tottenham. I'll be honest with you, in terms of myself, I kind of kept away from a lot of the pre-season games because I was kind of already in the mindset that I'm going to judge it more so. Obviously, you have to take into consideration the transfer window, who comes in and who leaves, but more so the first 2 months of the season, which we're going to touch on. So I don't pay too much attention to the pre-season, but I must admit, I hadn't sort of seen a lot of the games. So I was going on by my sort of trusted people that I sort of talk to in terms of Arsenal supporters and what their feelings were. But I made a conscious effort to watch the last pre-season game because you do need to see it with your own 2 eyes. You can't just go by hearsay and what people tell you. You have to see it for yourself. Before I come to you, what I kind of saw, I don't know, you might agree, people in the chat, let us know your thoughts. I saw a lot of what I saw last season. I saw a lot of having a lot of possession of the ball, getting into the final third or getting into wide areas and not producing anything. That's what I saw against Tottenham. Do you agree, or how did you see it differently?
I would agree with that. Definitely in the Tottenham game, you saw it. I think looking at that game, I think, Mikel Arteta talking about how Arsenal dominated the game afterwards. I didn't quite agree with that. I think there were spells in that game, I think from the 10th to the 40th minute, where I think you're spot on. I thought, the way Ben White kind of played in that high line, the way he was aggressive in winning the ball back. And then we kind of had a lot of situations where we were in the final third. We were structurally well organised, but we didn't create much. The opportunities that we did have, you couldn't say they're clear-cut opportunities. And like you said, I think a lot of the attacks did break down in the final third. And again, I think that comes down to quality in terms of reinforcements as well. And I think also in the Chelsea game, I thought there was few much more better opportunities in that game. And in the previous games as well, we did create opportunities. But when you're going against these types of teams, it gives you more of an understanding of how the team is and the kind of condition they're in. And it is a bit of a worry in terms of the lack of creativity in the final third. And I won't say, I'd say last season before Boxing Day, we were very poor in terms of creativity. We did improve, but it could obviously be better. And again, it's the same in the game as what we saw in the Spurs. So I would agree with you with those comments. Yeah.
Yeah. Sort of coming back to the 3 incomings, or the main one I'm going to talk about. With Ben White, that rumor stirred up a lot of heated discussion, should I say, to put it politely. I'll give you my thoughts personally, and I'll ask you what your feelings were towards the links. And obviously, now that we've got him, I didn't have an issue with it. I know people will put the argument out there, Arsenal had the 3rd best defensive record in the league, but let's be honest, there's still a lot of teething problems with our defense, whether that's in terms of people being injured consistently, different centre-back pairings, people getting over COVID from last season, people leaving. There's still, for me, a nucleus of problems there. So I didn't have an issue with the Ben White links. I think what I said at the time, and I'm going to say it again, is Ben White was a victim of being English.
Yeah.
They're going to cost more. And I could foresee what would happen, for example, if Ben White had gone to Liverpool, for example, and absolutely tore it up. The Arsenal fan base would have been having kittens. And they would have been, because they would have been saying, why don't we purchase this guy? And I must admit, 50 million, 40 million, 30 million, it's not my money. So, if he's going to bring quality and make the defense better, then what would be the cons? There's more pros than cons. And I was impressed, particularly what I saw against Tottenham, because
100%.
He got last-ditch tackles in. He didn't dive in. He stood up. He looked comfortable on the ball. He can bring the ball out. His head was in the right areas at the right time when crosses were coming in. I was very impressed. What did you make initially of the to and fro between Arsenal fans in regard to links of Ben White and what you've seen with your own 2 eyes for Arsenal and for Brighton previously?
I love him. He's a player that I've really liked, not just from Brighton, but in his Leeds days as well. And you make a really good point about the defensive record. I think defensively, Mikel Arteta, one thing I think potentially most of us can agree with is that he has made us structurally a lot better defensively. But just because you had the 3rd best defensive record doesn't mean you don't need to reinforce in those areas, because it's not just about defending. It's about how you build out from the back. And I think a lot of people haven't looked into this. And earlier, obviously, I've just spoken to you about David Luiz and how I would have kept him for 1 more year because of the experience, the leadership, both on and off the pitch, and also the ball progression he provided. Because David Luiz, one thing we can all agree with is that he is one of the top ball-playing centre-backs out there in terms of how he can hit those diagonals out wide, breaking the line centrally. And with him leaving, it was imperative that we bought a centre-back in. We had to. And when you look at Ben White, I think what I like about the club is, although Ben White's got experience, it's not a significant amount of experience, but they've targeted a player whose profile suits what we want to do. And, when you look at Ben White, I think one thing I've seen in pre-season is that we're looking to be a lot more aggressive in our press. It wasn't as evident in certain games, but that's something that Arteta is looking to work on. And if you want to press aggressively, you have to squeeze as a unit. So you need your back line to be comfortable in playing a high line. And not only are they comfortable in terms of winning the ball back high up, but if players do go in behind, they can recover their position. And Ben White fits the bill there. And for Brighton, for Leeds, one of his best attributes is being tenacious, winning the ball back. And you saw it in the Spurs game where he did it 3 or 4 occasions for Son. And it allowed us to kind of spring forward. Yes, we didn't create opportunities, but Ben White did his job in that sense. And also, like you said, the last-ditch tackles. He's very good at recovering his position. So I was really happy with the signing. And I can't see it failing, because when you look at Ben White and you look at the last two managers he's been under, Graham Potter and Marco Bielsa, two aggressive managers, two managers who defenders need to be comfortable in defending in isolation, but also they need to be good on the ball. And Ben White won Player of the Season in both years for both Brighton and Leeds. And I know Arteta is a person who divides a lot of opinion amongst the fan base, but I think he has a similar footballing philosophy to those guys. Yes, there's not the same principles and tactical methods, but they share the same idea in terms of they want to be dominating the game with the ball. So Ben White, I think, fits the bill perfectly, and it was imperative we signed him because we need that guy at the back who's going to help us progress forward.
No, well said. People in the chat, thank you for your interaction. Smash the like button and subscribe to the Same Old Arsenal if you haven't already. I'm sure you can multitask and watch the podcast at the same time. It is possible, believe me. Rowan, mate, just to sort of move on slightly, but sort of sticking with the theme of the players, really. I want to talk to you about Aubameyang and Lacazette. Where do I start? You know what? I'm not going to lie. In terms of, we'll start with Aubameyang. I'm not going to lie. I was obviously pleased when he signed the contract. I wouldn't say I was pleased in the point that I was doing cartwheels and having parties that he stayed, because, you know, we wasn't buying a new player. We wasn't buying somebody that was going to transform the fortunes of Arsenal for years to come just because of his age. I take into account there were major circumstances as to why he performed the way he did last season. Totally understand that. What have you made of what you've seen with him in pre-season, and also with Lacazette? With Lacazette, I personally, you know, it's no secret that the rumours were true before the start of last season that Roma were interested. They're talking about the region of £30 million. Personally, I would have sold him. And I said coming into this season, before I bring you in, I don't want to see personally Aubameyang and Lacazette still at the club. One of them has to go. And more than likely, it would have to be Lacazette.
Yeah.
Still time. But yeah, what's your thoughts on starting with Aubameyang first, our club captain, and then we'll sort of move on to Lacazette, if you can break it down for me, bro.
Yeah, I think with Aubameyang, he is going through a torrid time, isn't he, at the moment? I think if we look at pre-season, like I said, you've not managed to catch all the games. I think if I look at the positives, I think Aubameyang, towards the back end of last season and in pre-season in certain games, I think he's improved slightly in his link-up play, the way he drops in and he kind of brings others into the game. It's not still as good as Lacazette. In fact, it's nowhere near as good as what Lacazette does. But I think he's improved in that aspect. But with Aubameyang, it is worrying, because what we associate Aubameyang with is that predator box and the way he converts chances. And although obviously in the Tottenham game there wasn't anything there for him, there've been other games where he has missed gilt-edged opportunities. I mean, the Chelsea game, Nuno Tavares puts in a really good ball for him. It's a free header, and he completely miscues it. I remember the game against Rangers, free good opportunity. Oh my God, I saw that. Yeah. He's going through a torrid time, and it is a worry. What I don't like, I know we're going to touch on it potentially, is in this system, I do not like Lacazette and Aubameyang together one bit. I think it massively ruins the balance in the team. And then when you add Pepe there, you look at those three guys, we spent significant money on them. They can't work as a collective. They just can't. And because when you look at the front line, you need balance across the whole pitch. And 100%. Pepe, I've always kind of supported him. I do like him, but I understand his weaknesses. And his weaknesses is doing the simple things right. You know, giving the ball away cheaply, and it's so frustrating to see. And then Aubameyang as well. Like I said, he has improved on his link-up play slightly, but again, it's not enough. So you've got two guys there who aren't secure on the ball. So how are you going to be able to control the game in the final third when you've got two players who are going to give the ball away?
Amen to that. Yeah.
You know, and then Lacazette, as good as he is in the build-up play, and I think he's had a very good pre-season, he doesn't attack the box as what I would like to see. I remember the Chelsea game, there's a really good situation where Tierney, the quality he delivers in the final third is outrageous. And he puts a great ball in across the face of goal. and Lacazette doesn't attack the near post. And I didn't play as a striker in football, but one of the first things I always hear from the coach is you've got to attack the near post, and you've got to, you've got to feed off those opportunities. And it wasn't a chance created because he didn't get on the end of it. But in my eyes, that is a chance created because a centre forward attacks that. Similar to the way Giroud used to do for Arsenal. I know he got a lot of criticism, but there were certain things that he did what I like. So with Aubameyang, it is worrying. I do think he just needs one goal, and I think he could potentially kind of kick on. I don't think we'll see the Aubameyang to what we've seen in previous years in terms of hitting those kind of goals, because what we've got to understand is he was very efficient, back then. Like when you look at his underlying statistics and metrics, he wasn't getting many opportunities, but he was just efficient. And right now, he's just missing those opportunities. But hopefully, if he can get one goal in, it can kind of put him on a bit of a run. But it is worrying. It is worrying times with regards to the striker situation. Like I said, with Lacazette as well, I agree with you. Last season, one of the club's biggest problems was selling players at the right time where their value is at optimum level. Yeah. And Lacazette last season had to be sold. And now I think the club are in kind of a dilemma where do they sell Lacazette now where we're not going to get much for him? And when you consider what he does provide for the team, is it worth it? So I think it's a difficult one, but I would definitely still look to sell him this summer if a good value comes in. But then it's a case of bringing someone in.
Well, we know how Arsenal when it comes to bringing people in. but no, you know what? The Lacazette and the Aubameyang thing drives me mad, bro. Because I've got to be honest. I was one aspect of the pitch where I probably was on the Arsenal players the most. And this might surprise people. It's not the midfield; it was the strikers. Yeah. And you touch on it. You make a good point because I think you don't even have to be someone that's a football coach or, sometimes your set of eyes don't lie to you. Aubameyang and Lacazette cannot play together, and there's still some Arsenal fans that think that they can. Yeah, I think there's very few isolated times I can remember where they've combined well as a partnership. I'm thinking probably Europa League semi-final against Valencia, but there's not a number of games where these guys have played well together. They cannot play in the same team. If you're going to play that 4-2-3-1 formation, I'm not Lacazette's biggest fan, but you play him as the main guy because he's got better hold-up play and better all-round play. Yeah. But you cannot shoehorn both these guys into the team. And even with Arteta's inexperience or the experience around him, because we're led to believe in terms of the backroom stuff, he has experience there. That's what we're told. Yeah. So I cannot believe they cannot see that these two guys can't play together. Yeah, it's crackers. I mean, I think Lacazette, quote me if I'm wrong, Rowan, but I think his best return for goals while he's been at Arsenal, I think was Emery's first season, where he scored 19 in all competitions. I think I might be right. I might be wrong, but people, I'm sure in the chat will tell me. But and you think to yourself, as a striker, you're judged. There's that classic saying that 20, 25 goals a season. Lacazette's never hit that at Arsenal. No. Never. No. He's not. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, he's not hit 15 Premier League goals yet since he's came to the club. I think last season, I don't know in terms of all competitions. I'd have to think. But I think last season was his best in the Premier League. He got 14. It was a good season for him, particularly towards the back end. But yeah, it's still not enough. With me personally, like you said, I don't mind who he goes for with Aubameyang or Lacazette up top, but he has to get the balance right across the front line. That's key because, like I said, Pepe, Aubameyang, and Lacazette, they can't play together as a partnership, and it's crazy the amount of money we spent on those guys. They can't work as a collective, and I think, to be fair to Arteta, what I will say is that right now I think we are kind of struggling with options through the left-hand side, and you look at it. I think when you look at since Boxing Day all the way to the end of the season, when we had Odegaard come in January, he did predominantly play one or the other, and he kind of tweaked the front line depending on who was playing and how to get the best out of that centre forward. So, but right now, obviously, the left-sided options aren't very ideal. You've got Reece Nelson, who I don't think Arteta is a huge fan of from what it looks like on the outlook. Willian, obviously, I feel bad for the guy. I do want him to be sold, but I don't think he was as bad since January. But again, he's not someone you'd want to come through in.
Yeah,
Like,
he improved slightly. Yeah,
I'm not clutching at the straws there, but
yeah.
I think he's not got many options there. But with Saka coming back now, it's not ideal because I want this guy to get a bit of a rest and for him to be gelled slowly into the team. But given the situation we're in right now, I think he's got to
We
play.
need him.
We'll talk about that obviously later.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
No, Rowan, good points, man. Good points. Big ups to people in the chat. The chat is insane. Thank you for the interaction. And like I said, smash that like button and subscribe to the Same Old Arsenal. So I'm going to sort of come back to probably players that are linked with Arsenal who might come in before the end of the window. But I sort of want to come in with something else between that. I could ask this question to any Arsenal fan in the universe, but I'm glad I got you to ask you tonight. With sort of the fan base, and I think you have sections where there's ones that say, oh, not to be, there's too much negativity. We need to get behind the players. We need to support the players. We need to get behind the manager. There's no point moaning and complaining. But then you've got the other aspect where they are going to moan and complain because they've seen what they've seen in recent years, culminating in very recent years, 2 back-to-back 8th league finishes, no European football. So where do you sit with it? Because listen, we've sort of joined the YouTube arena at the same time. So we've seen what we've seen with Arsenal. Where do you sit with it in terms of the support for the players and the club, whatever way you want to phrase it, and sections of the fan base saying that it's all too negative, it's too much negativity? Where do you sit with that? Because just to come before I bring you in, it's difficult to be positive about something negative.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? I respect people's opinions, and I just think it's a bit difficult to be positive about our situation when we're not good to watch football-wise on the eye. We're not. And that's probably even before Mikel Arteta, to be totally honest. It's been a slog to support Arsenal, to be brutally honest. So where do you sit with sort of the where the fan base should be, even though you've got your own opinion, but where do you sit? Because obviously you see social media and you see how quickly it can turn.
It can, yeah. I mean, you just look at yesterday, for example, the Ramsdale news.
Yeah. Oh my
throughout the
God.
morning and the afternoon, it was chaos. I was getting messages, and it was all over my timeline. My worst nightmares came through. Ramsdale's coming, and then obviously in the evening, there's a little bit more optimism because the club kind of pulled out on the deal.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones. I can understand the frustration because, like you said, when you look at it on paper, we finished 8th in successive seasons, and there've been some really bad times. Obviously, under Unai Emery, where we went on that barren run just in his last year, where we struggled to win a game. We had the Emery period, and nothing really kind of improved there. And then Arteta came in, and then last season, throughout the whole of the first half of the season, we had to play that 3-4-3, and it became very dull and boring and not pleasing on the eye. And I understand the frustration with it. With me personally, I try and be as positive as I can. I like to look at it from both sides. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because I can't tell a fan how they should react and what they should do and how they support the club, providing it's not abusive and it goes over the line. I think they have every right to kind of voice their opinion. So that's kind of where I stand on it. It can be negative. I can understand it. Sometimes I think it potentially can go over the top, but that's just from my own perspective. But I don't know. It's
sorry, Ryan, to cut in. Sorry to cut in. You know what is what I think the reason why I sort of asked that question probably now is because where we are as a club, because
yeah.
The thing is, I saw a lot of people doing this comparison thing sort of during the Euros with Southgate and Arteta, for example, right? And the similarities and I said, for me, where the similarities will end is at least with the England side. Yes, you can talk about the talent they've got. One word I use, I see progression. I personally, you might disagree, Rowan.
Yeah.
I am struggling immensely to see progression at Arsenal.
Yeah.
On and off the pitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's probably why I sort of pose a question to you now, because people can see it's. I understand about being positive, but not positive blindly. Because
no, of course not. Of course.
I can't sit and do podcasts like this and bring you on and act as if everything's going to be okay. Arsenal are in a plight.
Yeah.
That was a strong word to use. I don't enjoy saying it.
Yeah.
But that's been the case for years, and actually, I don't think it's getting any better.
Yeah.
And maybe pre-season's a small reflection of that. Yes, there's still time in the window, but I just, someone asked me, they said to me, I said, look, what do you think of this season coming up? I said, I'll be honest with you, I am not looking forward to it whatsoever. Yeah. I said, I want Arsenal fans to tell me, people in the chat watching this, people watching this on YouTube, give us something as Arsenal fans as to why we should be positive going into this season. I'm still waiting for the answer, by the way.
I'll give you something positive because I do like to be kind of optimistic and positive.
Yeah.
So this is why I like coming on YouTube channels.
Yeah.
So through Twitter, because obviously through writing I like to do that, but I like to kind of talk to other people as well about what they feel about Arsenal. I think if you look at last season, I split it into two halves. So I look at the season where obviously when it commenced all the way till Boxing Day, we had no creative midfielder available. So we had to play that 3-4-3. I called it a hybrid 3-4-3 because it changed drastically when we had the ball and when we didn't have the ball. And it had a lot of success. It gave us a lot of success in the FA Cup run against lots of Man City, Chelsea. We saw some good patterns of play, particularly in terms of the way, we kind of built out from the back. We moved to the right. Pepe would put a cross in towards the back post for Aubameyang, patterns like that. But then as the season went on, teams were able to nullify Arsenal because they realised they couldn't create. So they sat deep, they remained compact, and they said, you can have the ball. We know you're not going to be able to break us down. And we saw that time and time again throughout the first half of the season. And I felt a little bit sorry for Mikel Arteta because clearly in the summer he wanted to buy Hossein Mawar and the club weren't able to get him. And that creative midfielder would have allowed us to move to a 4-2-3-1, which is what we're seeing right now. And then obviously at Boxing Day, we had Emile Smith-Rowe come in as our creative profile. Yeah. He's a Hale End graduate. He's not got a significant amount of experience, but profile-wise, we needed him because he would have allowed us to kind of play a little bit more expansive and a little bit more pleasing on the eye. I know a lot of people still say that it is quite dull to watch, and I get that, but I think there has been improvement since he's came to the team. And, since we moved to that formation, we've seen consistency in terms of results and I think performances from a personal point of view. And when you look at the table, since his inclusion into the team and since we were allowed to play Arteta's favoured formation, we were second in the table. We had one of the best defensive records and also attacking-wise, I think we scored the third most in that period as well. Yeah. So I think the way I look at it is when Mikel Arteta has his strongest 11, I think we can be a good team. We're competitive. We've seen games against lots of Spurs at home where we were really good in that game. And there is optimism there. Right now, obviously, in the window, I think we're a bit short. And that's where I'm a bit worried because we do need certain individuals to kind of allow us to maintain that consistency we've shown since Boxing Day. So the optimism, the kind of positivity I'll give to you is that there has been improvement since we have changed formation. And when we've had a player who can kind of fit into the system and the way that Arteta wants his team to play. Don't get me wrong, Mikel Arteta still made a plethora of mistakes throughout that time. And this is something that I've always reiterated. I back the manager. I really do like him. But he's made a lot of mistakes, particularly, I think, during that Villarreal period where he overcomplicated he got me really frustrated as well, and he overcomplicated matters because one player became absent, Kieran Tierney, and he changed so many things, and it just became very dull. But when we've had our strongest 11, when we've had players that he likes, I think we've seen improvement. And I think we can see that going into next season, providing we bring in the players that we need towards the latter stages of this window.
Good points. People in the chat, if I don't get to read your comments out, I do apologize. It is very lively. I'm keeping up with it. Ian, big shout out to you, the Darlington fan that popped in a couple messages in the chat. Don't think I haven't seen it. I've seen it, mate. So I appreciate you coming into the watch the podcast, mate. But people, thank you for the interaction. Charlie L, good point. Yeah, they bring out another kit again. Yeah, I'm sure another training top's coming out as well. That's it. They have us Arsenal fans hoodwinked, man. I'm telling you, mate.
They're good kits, aren't they?
They are good kits, to be fair. They are good kits. But me personally, I like my old school traditional ones. So I don't delve too much into the new kits, but not knocking anybody that wants to get them.
Of course.
You earn your own money, do what you want, it's fine. But now, Ryan, thanks for asking that. But yeah, it's quite a difficult question to answer because listen, there's nothing would make me more happy than to do my own channel and obviously, you know, being part of the same old Arsenal family, to come on and be positive and talk about fantastic midfield performances and the strikers can do no wrong.
Yeah.
But that's not the case at Arsenal, unfortunately, people. We have to live in the here and now. But yeah, I sort of want to come to, before I sort of mention, I'm going to come to actually the impending potential transfers that might possibly come in. There's some names being linked. I said this yesterday on my channel, on my live Q&A, Rowan. If there's one player that got linked with Arsenal that no Arsenal fan can tell me saw coming, was Aaron Ramsdale. I generally don't know where that's come from. I remember sort of even last season, people in the chat agree, disagree. When people used to talk about Leno, because to be fair, there's a section of Arsenal fans that have never really truly been convinced by Bernd Leno. Yeah. But they always used to say, we have bigger problems to worry about at Arsenal, which is true at the time.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months. We badly need a goalkeeper at Arsenal.
100%.
Because if Leno gets injured, it's not looking good. It's actually, let me rephrase it, it's looking peak. Because it is. The Ramsdale one, I don't know where that came from. I generally don't. And I said, in defense of Ramsdale, right, you're having to play in front of a back four in terms of when he's at Bournemouth and Sheffield United, where they leak goals, and defensively you haven't got that stability in front of you. So I'll cut him a little latitude, but that link I don't understand. We've had the links with obviously Tammy Abrahams. There's talks. It goes from Ødegaard, it goes to Aouar, it goes to Maddison, back to Ødegaard. Sort of coming to you, Rowan, in terms of the Maddison one, I think that's a smokescreen, personally. I don't see that happening. I think you've got more chance of landing Ødegaard or Hossam Aouar, personally. But I've got to the stage now, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to bring you in now. I don't care who comes in out of those three. Just get one of them in. Get somebody in. Just get someone in. I think one person might come in. I won't say two. I think we'll see one more come in before the end of the transfer window. That's my own personal opinion. If you to ask me what position that would be, I haven't got a clue.
Yeah. Because
we need so many positions. But yeah, what's your take on sort of the links with whether it be Ramsdale, Ødegaard, Aouar, or Abrahams? Where do you stick with that?
Well, I think with Ramsdale, I've got a lot to talk about this one.
Go on.
Again, right, with Ramsdale, I've watched him closely for 2 years now, both at Bournemouth and Sheffield United, and I've not been convinced one bit. I put him in my top 3 worst goalkeepers in terms of performance-wise through both Bournemouth and Sheffield United. And it's one that doesn't make sense to me, because I look at Ramsdale and yes, he saved a lot of shots throughout his 2 seasons at both Bournemouth and Sheffield United. But I think what we've got to consider is the amount of frequency and the volume of shots that are coming at his goal. So he's going to be constantly active, and that's allowing him to make a lot of these saves. But when you dive into it a lot more, what I see with Ramsdale in terms of just shot stopping ability, he tends to parry a lot of shots back into the danger area. So that's where numbers don't really kind of give you too much detail in it, with regards to save percentage. And when you look at Ramsdale, if we just look at shot stopping, at Sheffield United and Bournemouth, like I said, he's constantly active. He's on his toes. He knows he has to make saves regularly. If he came to a club like Arsenal, again, what Mikel Arteta has done is structurally, defensively, we've improved. We don't face as many shots on goal in comparison to when we had Unai Emery. So it's a lower volume of shots. So the goalkeeper, it's not just down on their ability to make saves frequently. It's the concentration levels and the ability to be able to make that all-important save when you need to be called into action. So there's uncertainty whether he can kind of transition his style of the way he's kind of tasked to play at Sheffield United to Arsenal. So there's uncertainty there. I think in terms of commanding his area, he does look slightly better than Burnley in this aspect. So I definitely will give him a tick in that area. But
is he a big goalkeeper, Ramsdale? He doesn't look that massive to me.
Not that big, but what I've seen of him, he's for his frame, he is quite decent in terms of playing, dealing with crosses and those kind of situations. But then I think if we look at the main thing I need in a goalkeeper is their ability on the ball. And I know a lot of people will look at a goalkeeper and still think it's all about their shot stopping, but it's not. Particularly with the way that we want to play football. We want to play a possession-based style of football. We want to build up from the back. So we need a goalkeeper who is calm and composed on the ball. And again, Ramsdale, I don't think he significantly improves us in this aspect. And then if we go back to Bernd Leno, I think when you're looking at a significant sample size and the performances he's provided since he's came to the club, I think he's been our best goalkeeper since Jens Lehmann. I know you can say Emi Martinez, but I think Emi Martinez, the sample was a lot smaller. So I'm looking at over a larger sample.
Of course, that makes sense.
Yeah, but last season, I noticed a big problem with Bernd Leno. And it's not just we need a number 2. I think we need a starting goalkeeper. I really think when the ball is at his feet, he struggles massively. He creates anxiety for defenders ahead of him.
Yeah, 100%.
With the types of passes he placed them. And he also takes far too long on the ball as well. And he's not decisive enough. Commanding of his area, that's always been a bit of a sticky one with Bernd Leno. He struggles against teams that are physical when corners are coming in. And shot-stopping wise, again, he showed when we've been under high volume, under Unai Emery, he bailed us out on a number of occasions. But then again, since Arteta's came in, where we face lower volume, it's about concentration levels. And Bernd Leno has made blunders. You look at the game against Everton at the Emirates, if you can remember that one with the own goal. So there's a lot of areas that I struggle with Bernd Leno, and I think he massively needs to be replaced, not just a number 2. But then with Ramsdale, it doesn't make sense, as I've already stated. And when you consider the amount that's needed for him, 30 to 40 million that's quoted apparently, it's just not a smart investment in my opinion. You could say Ramsdale perhaps in the future he could be a top class goalkeeper because he is young, he is 23 years old, and goalkeepers have long careers, and he's already had 2 years in the Premier League, so that is significant experience under his belt. But it's a huge risk, and it's a deal that I definitely not would be keen on.
No, good points, man. Guys, like I kept saying, smash the like button. I'm sure you have. There's quite a few people watching. I think I can see that. Nigel, get me the numbers if you're still there, Nigel. But I think very lively, very lively. The chat is popping in a good way. Opinions, that's what it comes down to, people. Like I said, with my channel, there's a slogan, just another opinion. And that's all it is. No better, no worse. But Rowan, players going out of Arsenal, which has been a major issue for a number of years. They could put that down to the wages they're on, which is probably the reason why we can't get rid of them. People not being interested. I look at it right with this Arsenal hierarchy that we have now. And just my opinion, but they must have thought that sort of going into this summer transfer window, that they're going to get a lot of money coming in. If they did think that in terms of player sales, I mean, they must be living in cloud cuckoo land, because I'm sort of scanning through my head thinking, how much money do they realistically think they're going to get? Because Arsenal, for me, have priced themselves out of moves. You could have got the money for Lacazette last season. The thing is, I come from a retail background as well as loving sport and football. You have to take a loss sometimes. Just take the money and run.
100%.
I was asked about Joe Willock last season. I was on somebody else's channel, right? And I said, I can distinguish between not being sentimental and knowing what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I said, if Newcastle are serious about tabling 20 to 25 million on Joe Willock, Arsenal, I said at the time, quote unquote, take the money and run. Take it. It's nothing personal against Joe Willock. I even said it. If Joe Willock comes back to Arsenal, Mikel Arteta can't be the manager because he's not going to get a look in.
Exactly.
And even if you thought he's going to get a look in,
yeah,
where's he going to play, Rowan?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, to me, it's madness.
Yeah.
So someone touched in the comments about Richard Garlick, which I'm going to sort of interlink a tiny bit later. But you know what I think it is, Rowan? I'm coming to you in terms of the transfers or why you think business hasn't been done. Whether you go along with what I say or you might have your own thoughts, but I almost think like Joe Willock and the likes of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain years ago and Alex Iwobi, they've almost become the sacrificial lambs.
Yes,
they're easy to get rid of.
Yeah,
you know, you get the offer, take the money, done. People are like, well, why can't Arsenal get deals done? But some deals are easier than others.
This is exactly it.
I think that's the case with Joe Willock. I think nothing personal, like Hey Boy and all the rest of it, but I just think he's been a bit of a case of a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
What do you make of that and the Willock and the people that's still there?
I agree with everything you say. I think if we look at Joe Willock, and like I said, one of the biggest problems the club has had over the years, and this is not just over the past 2-3 years, but this is
long time
that has happened for years, and it's the inability to sell players at the right time and take the money and invest in other areas. Now, Joe Willock, when we look at him during his loan spell at Newcastle, that system that Steve Bruce plays is tailored to him. They play over 3-man midfield.
Exactly.
And it allows Joe Willock to make those third-man runs, break into the box, similar to the way Aaron Ramsey did for us. And the goals he scored, the influence that he had for Newcastle in terms of keeping them up, he played a big part in that.
Massive part.
He did really well, and he went on that run. I think it's 7 goals in 7 games in succession, and he did really well. But it was tailored to him. He comes now back to Arsenal. He's a better player, and without a shadow of a doubt. But like you said, in our current system, there isn't room for Joe Willock in the starting 11. Unfortunately, when you look at the team and the way we shape up, there's 2 positions Willock can play. It's either in the midfield pivot, where you're tasked to be a lot more responsible in terms of your positioning, or you play as a number 10. Joe Willock, at the moment, his attributes aren't tailored to neither of those roles.
Yeah, 100%.
He needs to break into the box. So then you tell yourself, right, he could be a squad player coming off the bench and you could impact games in that kind of fashion. But is it worth keeping a player like that when we need to recoup money just to play a bit part role in the team, whereas you can invest that money, the 25 million that's going to come for his sale because of the performances he provided for Newcastle? You have to take the money. And I think if Arsenal do take it, which it looks like they are going to, I think it's just personal terms right now that it would be a good bit of business, because I think Arsenal have also included a sell-on clause. So if Joe Willock does go on and produce for Newcastle, he gets a bigger move, then that deal could potentially rise to near 30 million. So then you look at it and you think Arsenal have done quite well in terms of recouping the money for him. So I agree. I think you've got to take the money and run. It's nothing against Joe Willock. It's just the style of football and the way we set up. And in terms of other players, and again, we all want the likes of Hector Bellerin, Kolasinac, these kind of guys to be moved on. But it's not as easy as what it's kind of seen. Right now, I think what the club are doing is they have a value for their player, a specific value, and they want to negotiate around that. The buying club doesn't want to meet the demands of Arsenal, and why would they, given the fact that on paper we finished 8th? So immediately the players' values decreases because of that, because of the position we're in the table. And so it's difficult to move players on. And I think once the window starts to close, Arsenal will look at it and think, we've just got to cut our losses and we've just got to let these guys go. And it's going to be for minimal amounts of money, or it's going to be loans. And that's the reality of it. And when you couple that with the fact that we're in a global pandemic, in the middle of one, it just makes everything a lot more difficult. So I understand the frustrations. everyone wants to see these guys be moved on. I really want to see it because I want to see fresh players coming in. I want to see a different look in our squad, but it's not as easy as what many kind of envisage.
Standard man, big up to you, my guy, man. The America, he does. It looks weird that in seeing Bellerin in that tash. I don't know what that's about, man. But no, Ryan, good points, man. Sort of. This is the part I sort of want to bring in and talk to you about, really. Big up to people in the chat. I think there's 148 people watching. Thank you. People who are on the Twitter, retweet and get people watching. Please do. Like I said, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel and follow my esteemed guest on his Twitter and his channel and his future journalism career that he's budding for himself. But I want to talk to you about Arteta. Very divisive word.
Very divisive.
Yeah, it is.
Very divisive.
People sort of asked me, and I tell you why I'm going to sort of bring him up, and so I'll probably touch on Edu and Vinay as well. I was actually finding enough on the same old Arsenal on the Four Men and the Mike show. I think it was either the last 32 round or the last 16 in Europa League. And I said at the time, what really, really concerns me is we know as fans where Arsenal are at the moment, and it's not in a good place for a number of years. But notably, I would say the last few years of Wenger, right through to now, as we speak on this platform.
Yeah.
The issue I have is you've got Arteta there, Edu and Vinay, who are all inexperienced. I said that at the time. I said, this shouldn't be happening. It should not be happening. Because if you're talking about getting in better players and better recruitment and, you know, getting the right profile of player, which I've heard a lot in the last 2 or 3 weeks or a few months, it's what I've seen now or in this transfer window, even though there's still a few weeks to go, Rowan, and people in the chat. Why did we think it was going to be good? Why did we think it was going to be a positive window?
Yeah.
You've got 3 key guys that are inexperienced in their roles.
Yeah.
You know, Eddie was a coordinator for Brazil. That's not the same skill set as someone negotiating deals. Someone mentioned Richard Garlick in the chat earlier, saying, "Look, if you're going to basically don't quote my words. I can't remember the name of the gentleman that mentioned Richard Garlick's name, but if you're going to get someone at that level, get the best." You know, this guy worked with, no disrespect, worked with West Brom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we've had a systemic failing of people not negotiating contracts very well. Listen, maybe Richard Garlick's probably thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I don't know. I don't know how far entrenched he is with the contracts. He's obviously the main guy, but
yes, yeah.
I just think when you look at those components of the 3 key figureheads at Arsenal, all being inexperienced, they're not going to pull the transfer of all transfers out of the hat. It's not going to happen. I take into consideration there's still time. There is still time.
Yeah.
Not a lot of time, but there's still time.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rowan, just your thoughts, mate. Like I'm not surprised with what I've seen in the transfer window. Yeah. Hence the reason why I haven't done too much content on it. Why I've sat back, let other people get frustrated because that's all it's going to do to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's your sort of thoughts on, like I said, touched on the inexperience of the 3 key senior figureheads, and why were people possibly expecting us to do well in the transfer market?
Yeah. I think I agree with a lot of the points you make. I think with Edu and Arteta, as much as I do like Arteta, despite him being a very divisive figure amongst the fan base, I think when you've got Arteta who's inexperienced, and it doesn't matter how much academic knowledge you have, no matter what industry you are in, if you've never been in that position, you're going to make mistakes. And whereas an experienced person who may not be as knowledgeable as you and as kind of modern as you, they're not going to make those mistakes. And then when you couple that with Edu, who's also inexperienced, you've got 2 people there with regards to the transfers who are going to make mistakes. It's going to be kind of like trial and error, and that is worrying. And we saw that. We saw that with Edu last season as well, and what I was concerned with was his inability to get the Aouar deal done and over the line, because I think that was one that was essential. And I think if we had have brought him in that summer, I know there was a few problems with regards to his brother and I think certain fees, but if we brought him in, I think our season could have been a lot different. And then obviously this summer as well, there's been a lot of tension with regards to Edu and his inability to kind of bring players in. I've already touched on how it isn't as easy as what a lot of us kind of envisage. And that's why I think I know there's not long left, but I'm going to hold judgment properly after the window. And I think I'll be able to give a proper assessment of Edu. He's the one I'm targeting right now because I gave him this summer. A lot of people wanted him gone before this summer, but I wanted to give him the opportunity to see how he fares. And come the end of the window, if we have not addressed essential areas in my eyes, then I think we definitely need a change again amongst the hierarchy. And this is what's frustrating because over the past few years, we've gone through quite a lot of wholesale changes amongst the hierarchy, like Raul Sinelli, we had Husfami as well leave. We've had Sven Mislintat. We've had a lot of changes, and you're not going to be able to kind of rebuild successfully because you're going to have a lot of conflict of ideas, people wanting different types of players and profiles, and it's a bit of a mess. So I'll see with Edu at the end of the summer. I think Richard Garlick, we should give him a little bit more time because I think when we look at him when he came in, I think he came in towards the January period. His target was to kind of, with regards to contracts, and also tie players down who we currently have to a new deal, and to ensure that we don't in the future have to sell them for peanuts, like we have done previously with lots of Ramsey and players like that. And I think if we look at Tierney and Emile Smith-Rowe, two players who are vital for us, we've signed them down to new long-term deals. So there are positives there with regards to Richard Garlick. But again, Ace, I understand the frustrations. I think, like I said, I'll reserve judgment on Edu in particular after the transfer window. And again, I think Richard Garlick needs a bit more time.
Yeah, well, good points, man. Guys, we're gonna wrap up. So we're gonna talk about the Brentford game. Obviously, the Premier League season starts for us beloved Gooners tomorrow night. Big up to the Arsenal fans who are going to Brentford tomorrow, because you have another away ground to visit, a new one. So enjoy yourselves, because I know a lot of you guys have been itching to get back to football. And safe journey there, and obviously enjoy yourself when you do get there, within reason, obviously. And hopefully we'll get 3 points as well. But yeah, Rowan, sort of what I hear a lot about in terms of Arsenal, and I'm going to touch on obviously a tiny bit of Arteta before we move on to Brentford, is I hear a lot of people talk about counterbalance. And I'm laughing when I say that, because I understand about counterbalance in terms of it can't just be negative. But again, like I alluded to earlier in the stream, it's difficult to be positive about Arsenal. I said it last season. One of my famous lines last season was, it's difficult to like this team. And that's where I'm at with Arsenal. I made a comment yesterday in terms of sort of, I'm a big fan of watching the Olympics. The last 3 have been amazing. So emotionally engaged with the athletes, and hook, line, and sinker, and the emotional attachment. I don't have that with Arsenal. No. That's missing. It's been missing for years, because the club haven't given us anything to be happy about. And for the younger generation out there watching this, or Rowan, I'm 21 plus VAT, so I'm a little bit older than you. It will come good again. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard slog. It will. And it's not getting any easier, but we will get there. It's going to take a long time, though, and that's the only realistic thing I can say. It's going to be past Mikel Arteta. I think where Mikel Arteta lost me as a fan was when he said, if you got to know the Cronkies better, you'd be surprised. From that, I was gone. I said, I cannot listen to this guy in a press conference anymore, because even in Wenger's worst faults, he would never have come out and said that, Rowan. Never. Even though he took a lot of bullets from the, in terms of the hierarchy. When Arteta said that for me, I said, you know what? I can't listen to this guy anymore. But yeah, tomorrow's game, man. Brentford away. Newly promoted Brentford. Rowan, before I come to you, Brentford have been a decent side for a few years, to be honest, even when Dean Smith was manager, to be fair. They was always sort of hovering around the playoffs and the championships. Absolutely should have come up the season before last, but they blew it on, for me, on quite a few occasions, and obviously lost in the playoff final to Fulham. Got an interesting manager in Thomas Frank. I'd love to sort of know more about him. I'll see how he cuts his teeth in the Premier League. But we look at the obvious main man in Ivan Toney. 31 goals, 10 assists last season. But with any good striker, you need a good supply line.
100%.
They've got the experience in the back with Pontus Jansson, and they've got Sergej Canos and Brian Mbeumo, goals and assists. I think Mbeumo had 8 goals, 11 assists. Sergio Canos, 9 goals, 9 assists. So his supply line came from there for Ivan Toney. So Brentford are not going to fear us. So what have you made? What have you seen of Brentford probably in the last, year, 18 months? And how do you see tomorrow's game going?
You make a really good point. It's not just last year, but the season before as well. They should have got into the Premier League. I remember it was David Raya, very highly rated Brentford goalkeeper. He made a massive blunder in that final against Fulham. Do you remember it? And it was really, I was disappointed because I like to see a new team come in the Premier League who play a good brand of football. And again, Thomas Frank, what he's done is he's been able to pick them up from that low. And again, they've gone again this season. And I've been impressed. I've not watched as much, but I've seen enough to give a judgment on them. And I think for most parts of last season, they played a 4-3-3. But then towards the latter stages of the campaign, they moved to a back three and they played more of a 3-4-1-2. And they had Brian Mbeumo and Ivan Toney top. And they had Sergio Canos as well as that kind of creator as well. And what I like about Brentford is they are a very modern team, not just in terms of on the pitch and their philosophy and the way he sets the team up, but also on the off the pitch with the analysts, the way they recruit players, and it's just really good to see. In terms of the way they play on the ball, it's kind of similar to us in terms of the way they build up from the back. They play with the back three. They build in that way. They have a midfield pivot, and then they have a kind of like a front five who they attack with. It's very similar to us, but different principles, obviously. What I've seen with Brentford is they like to kind of play a lot of their football through central areas, and that opens up the space out wide. And so they're quite dangerous through all areas of the pitch, all zones. And I think also what they're really good at is the way they press with intensity. They win the ball back high up, and they did that a lot last season, and they got a lot of success from it. Obviously, Ivan Toney's the main man, but like you said, supply lines with the likes of Mbeumo, who's been electric. I remember watching him in the playoff semi-final against Bournemouth. Brentford's ground. He was unreal. Ivan Toney got a lot of the credit, but he was the man of the match for me in terms of how lively he was and the quality he provided. Sergio Canos as well is another very technically gifted player. David Raya obviously at the back in goal. They've got some very good players and they play a very good brand of football. What's also worth mentioning is that Brentford last season, they scored 12 goals from corners. They are a threat in the air. Ivan Toney's got a good frame. He's good in the air, but he's not as clinical from what I've seen in those situations. But the back line, the centre-backs, they're dangerous. And it's going to be a bit of a test for us because last season, we were statistically the best team defending corners. But then since, obviously, we had our set-piece coach leave, he did very well in terms of the defensive aspect, but offensively we were atrocious.
Rubbish.
But defensively we did a lot better, and we've kind of brought this new guy in, Jova, who actually started off at Brentford. Then he went to Man City and he's came to Arsenal. So hopefully he'll help us maintain defensively from corners, even though in the first few games in pre-season we looked woeful. We looked very suspect in those situations. So that's something to worry about. I think weaknesses with Brentford is any team who play this kind of brand of football, who want to play on the front foot, want to dominate the game, want to press well, is if you play around their press, there's so much space in behind. They can be really hurt on the counter-attack. And I think tomorrow's game, I see it as a very difficult one because you look at it, it's Friday night, it's under the lights, a newly promoted team, packed crowd. The first time the Premier League's going to have a packed crowd since the pandemic started. And Brentford will look to make an impression and they will take the game to Arsenal. But I think that will play into our hands because we'll try and take the game to them. So it'll be an open game rather than us playing a team who defend in a low block, which is what we struggled with last season, breaking a team down. So I don't think we'll have many problems there. But I think we've got to understand that Brentford are going to be a test offensively. And it is going to be difficult. But I think when you consider the fixtures we have after that, it's a must win.
No, absolutely. Our first 2 months of the season, like I said, are pivotal. I would expect a minimum 10 out of 18 points if you actually look at the fixtures. because there's some games I just don't see us getting a victory or getting a point at all. But before we wrap up, Rowan, I'm going to get your score prediction for tomorrow. And people in the chat, get your virtual waves and your virtual hugs goodbye.
My score, it's a difficult one. I'm nervous for this because I look at it, like I've just said, there's so many factors that make me really nervous about it, because we're opening the season off again and all eyes are going to be on Arsenal. We've had, obviously, there's a lot of tension with the fans and the frustrations with regards to transfers. It's going to be difficult, but I can never go against my team. So I'm going for a 4-1 win.
4-1?
I'm going to be bold.
Rowan has gone bold.
I think if we get an early goal, if we settle the crowd early, I think it could be a lot easier. But I do think, despite the fact that Brentford are a very good team and pleasing on the eye, I think they'll do well this season. I think that it's a game that kind of plays into our hands as well, in a certain way. And if we can get an early goal, we can silence the crowd. It could potentially be easy. 4-1 is what my heart says.
That is very positive. Listen, people talk up. Listen, I've been on this channel enough times. People talk about counterbalance and being positive. My boy, my man, Rowan has just been ultra positive. Nigel, I go with the 2-1 in my head, but my heart says 1-1. Guys, I want to big up the guys in the chat. Amazing interaction. Like I said to people, smash that like button. Rowan's going 4-1. Nigel said 2-1. Albert is going 2-1 stroke 1-1 a little bit. I'm cheating a little bit. I'm being a bit greedy, but I hope we get the 3 points tomorrow, because we need to start the season on the front foot, 100%. Irrespective of what has gone on previously. But yeah, big up to you guys in the chat, man. Thank you for making my first evening as a host on the Same Old Arsenal podcast more than enjoyable. Like I said, big up to Craig and Dan who brought me on board. Love my Arsenal family, Same Old Arsenal. Love the podcast before I even came anywhere near it. But to be part of it, to be a permanent fixture, has been amazing. Thank you for the support and the good luck messages. And I couldn't have done my first show without my amazing guest, RJ Arsenal blog. Tell the guys where they can find you, and obviously about the things you do with your YouTube channel, and respect to you for getting the gig with your freelancing for football.london. Amazing, bro.
Yeah, it really means a lot. It's quite overwhelming because I've only been doing this for a year, very similar to when you started.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at RJ Arsenal blog. I do articles now for Football London. It's a bit surreal because before last year, I had never written a single football article in my life. Uni commitments made it difficult for me to kind of progress earlier. But I thought, when lockdown commenced, I thought, there wasn't many jobs out there for grads going out of uni. So I thought I'll look to see if I can do this, because I love talking about Arsenal. I love the club, even though it gives me nightmares. I really do love talking about Arsenal. I thought if I can couple my ideas in article format, maybe I could potentially get somewhere with it. And it's been quite surreal. So yeah, I'll be writing freelancing for Football London. I've already written a few pieces for them. So yeah, if you want to follow, then it's right there. Not forcing anyone.
No, of course, people go and support my bro, man. Amazing guy. I've said this to Rowan privately and publicly. Younger generation Arsenal fan who speaks brilliantly and articulately and gets his points across in a fantastic, plausible way. So my little brother, I call him, man. Seriously. So people go and subscribe. People subscribe to the Same Old Arsenal. And obviously I have my own channel as well. Yeah. And just to clarify something to a lot of people, because a lot of people ask me, I will still be doing my own channel. I've put too much work into it to just give it up like that. But I've been given an amazing opportunity by Craig and Dan and the rest of the lads. So I want to do them proud as well as do my own channel. So 100%. People, have an amazing Thursday night. To my gooners, enjoy tomorrow who are going. That is me. Over and out. Same Old Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.